it's long been part of English law that people can sue criminals who commit crimes against them. Sued him, and we got a judgment for £426,000. And we're in the process now of applying for sale of the house. In due course, that will be sold at auction. And Liz will get paid out.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's amazing guest, returning guest for the second time, is Robin Tilbrook. Hi, Robin, and welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Nick, for having me on.
You're welcome. I've thoroughly enjoyed our previous conversation about the English and how the English are beginning to find their voice and are saying to themselves and each other, we've had enough of what's going on in our country. That was a really good conversation. But today I want to talk to you about something. Well, is it slightly different or is that a lot different? I'm sure the viewer will make that judgment themselves. I've been aware of and been pushing back against and fighting the grooming gangs across England, maybe for about 2 decades, more recently than 2 decades ago. But I've been aware of what's been going on basically since the 70s. I knew local girls in my area when I was at school who would say, I don't go in that shop. I don't go on that market stall because they can't keep their hands to themselves. And I remember that as a child, girls telling me that. Obviously, at that point, I didn't know they were being raped. I didn't know they were being groomed. But I remember Asian-looking men running shops and running market stalls having a bad reputation, and that was the mid-70s. And then it's all come, it's all in the press now. It's been talked about in Parliament. These are Pakistani rape grooming gangs. Not 100% Pakistani, but the majority are Pakistani heritage. Some of them are foreign nationals as well. It's the biggest scandal I can ever imagine for this country. It's the biggest scandal ever. I've never seen anything like this. Not only did the crimes happen, but they were ignored by the police, ignored by councils, covered up by MPs, covered up by councils. The wrong people were arrested because of community relations. It was just a massive stain on the reputation of this country that we could sell out our little girls all for Muslim bloc votes, but also for community cohesion and for a quiet life. And so I can keep my pension and my easy job. It was horrendous. And we all know that's horrendous. So I don't want to talk about that today. You've got a special part in this because when I heard about it off Catherine Blakelock a few months ago, it was like, I can't believe I don't know about this. And it's this. You, as a solicitor, represented one of the victims of the grooming gangs. You took her perpetrator to court civilly and you sued him and you won his house. You've got his house as compensation for your client, a victim of the grooming gang scandal. Is that correct?
Yes, Nick. So I totally agree with all that you were saying about the Pakistani child rape gangs. The only thing is, I would say, I think the consistent thread, because for instance, in Telford, it was predominantly Somalis. But the consistent thread is that they have all been Muslims, and even in Rotherham, where the first official report, the J report, was published, it was saying that the majority of perpetrators were Pakistani Muslims, but the way that was reported, it sounded as if that was a sort of slender majority, but in fact it was all except for one who was not a Pakistani Muslim, but an Afghan Muslim, but also from the same tribal group as the Pakistani Muslim perpetrators. But I saw this going on. I wasn't aware of it happening back in the 70s. Otherwise, my life might have taken a different course altogether. But I really became, I was getting more and more aware of it. And then we had the J report. And I thought, what we've got here is situation where not only is it absolutely appalling the way that the state has behaved, um, but the state isn't the only answer, because it's long been part of English law that people can sue criminals who commit crimes against them. So I thought surely people are going to start suing these perpetrators, and it, for the girls that have been treated in this horrific way, that would be a large claim.
Yeah, and some of these perpetrators, they're not all poor, destitute immigrants. Some of these people are richer than me and you.
Yes. So you've got to bear in mind that these gangs, some of the left try and make out that, well, you get white paedophiles, which is perfectly true, but white paedophiles don't operate in sort of gangs that are basically part of a family, and they don't make money out of it, because what was happening was that not only were they raping these girls and abusing them horrifically as well, but they were pimping them as well to vast numbers of other, mostly Pakistani Muslim men, and making a lot of money out of each girl. So, I read somewhere that typically something like £250,000 a year. So it's not surprising that many of the perpetrators have got quite substantial assets, and they've become respected people within their community because they're seen as being rich and successful. And of course, the gangs often weren't just raping and pimping; they were into drugs and all sorts of other things as well. So they are serious criminal gangsters, and if you imagined that you lived in a country where the state actually cared for us, well, this is the most vivid demonstration that that is not the case. And far from caring for us, the people in the state only cared for themselves and their own interests. And I remember hearing an interview with Dennis McShane, who was a former Labour MP for Rotherham, and he was saying that when he became MP, he realised that this was going on in Rotherham, rape gangs operating, and he raised it with senior people in the Labour Party, and he was told to shut up because they needed the votes. So there's long been awareness, but nothing much done about it. But I thought the point that ordinary people and I could get involved in is bringing a court case. So I did try, not long after the J report, to advertise for people to come forward, victims to come forward to sue their perpetrators. The Rotherham Advertiser wouldn't take my advert, which I think is suspicious as to what knowledge they'd got as to what was going on. And after all, my advert was solicitors, firm of solicitors offering to take a type of work that, it wasn't that different to the advert I had to put in if I was interested in taking on whiplash injuries for somebody who'd been involved in car accidents. But I was saying that people should consider, the victims should be considering suing the perpetrators. And eventually we were able to have a girl came forward who was willing to stick her head over the parapet, really, and to stand up and to bring a case. And we got the three things that matter with this: a girl willing to do that, a perpetrator who's been convicted in this case of 2 rapes of her when she was 14, and assets. Because however horrific their crimes, if they haven't got any money, there's not any point in bringing a civil case. So anyway, we brought the case, and we
And when was this? When did you start the case?
um, so it's been going on for several years. The court process is slow anyway. Has been slow for a long time. I remember in Shakespeare's play Hamlet. Hamlet thinks one of the reasons why he might end his life is the law's delay. Um, but the law is slow, but it's been particularly slow in this case because we've obviously had to we've got all the knock-on effects of what happened with COVID, um, and but so it's been going on a while. I'm not sure exactly what year it started in, Nick, but maybe we're perhaps 4 years now from initial contact. Um, the rapes occurred 20 odd years ago. And so what I was going to say is that we we were able to bring a case. The first thing we did before actually making contact with the perpetrator was to freeze his assets and also get an anonymity order for the girl who's known as Liz. And we've then sued him, and we got a judgment for £426,000. He basically ruined her life, and so we had to get a medical report. You do if you're bringing what counts as a personal injury case, and we also got a forensic accountant to report on what her losses were. And so we got £426,000. The reason I'm explaining about the forensic accountant and the doctor's report there is because there's a sort of more or less perhaps too strong to say a guideline, but it's rough terms, a rape, if sued for, will produce a judgment for 30 odd thousand pounds. So we got for two rapes of a child, we've got a lot more than that. But then we were able to show a lifetime of losses. And we would be able to show that, I think, with most cases, because what happened to these girls has had life-changing consequences for them psychologically, and understandably so. But what we're currently doing, we then got a charging order over the house. We'd frozen the asset. We then went through the enforcement process because the next stage is charging order on house. Got that, and we're in the process now of applying for sale of the house. And in due course, that will be sold at auction, and Liz will get paid out for what we can obtain, and any shortfall that will hang over the perpetrator, and if he ever comes into any money, we'll take it off him.
That that's put such a smile on my face, that story. So, I mean, talk about justice. That's justice, and it may have been 20 years ago, but that doesn't affect justice. This girl's got a little bit of justice now. It'll never compensate for what she went through in the ruining of her life. I understand that, but it's a little bit of justice. It's also a little bit of a warning to all the other pedo perverts out there that if you're involved in this, you get involved in this. It doesn't matter how long it takes. If we can, we're going to come for you. It doesn't matter if the police say no, we're going to come for you. Now, my next question is, why don't we know about this? Why don't we know what you've just achieved? Why isn't that front page of all the papers? Why? I mean, tell me if some of this you have done. Why have you not been on GB News being interviewed about this case and Talk TV? Why does no one know about it? Why isn't other solicitors now advertising the country going, if you meet this criteria, victim of rape of the grooming gangs, the guy's been convicted and he's got assets, will represent you for free. Why is it a national campaign on this? Why don't we take all their houses, all their taxi firms, all their takeaways, all their money? Why aren't we doing that?
Well, Nick, I'm totally on side with us doing that, and certainly my thought in doing the case um, was that it would break the ice, basically, or act as a pathfinder, so people would be able to see exactly what you need to do and do it. Um, and it's not even a risky case because if somebody's been convicted, they're not allowed to argue that they didn't do it in a civil court. Um, and it is extraordinary. However, I must just say GB News have been very supportive
Oh, fantastic.
and have reported it on several occasions. So it isn't. They have been, I think, the exception. It received minimal coverage when we got a judgment elsewhere, um, and I mean at most an article. Um, the BBC didn't put anything up at all on any of their broadcast, although they did put something up on their website saying that there had been this case. Um,
This is a groundbreaking case.
yeah, so I think I've since been working with people to try and get to a point where we could um, basically connect girls who want to bring cases with some fundraising and also check up assets and if we can get all that together, then that should enable people to do it. I mean, after all, over the years, the left have been very good at legal action groups, which support them and what they're trying to do. Um, this ought to be something that patriots want to see happen. These girls have been treated appallingly. It was quite clearly racial and religious in terms of the discriminatory behaviour that you get from the perpetrators. They're regularly calling the girls, white trash and white slags and things like that. It's reported time and time again in the court cases. But the system is not there in a way that really wants to help. So we encountered nothing really but obstruction in terms of getting the actual transcript of the case from Sheffield Crown Court. But we did. We got what we needed. But we didn't get it easily. The one of the things that many of the girls would qualify for fee exemptions, so not having to pay the perfectly ridiculous huge fees that the courts now demand for bringing big cases. They mostly qualify for fee exemption. So we applied for that. The High Court took 8 months to process a single form, which really could have been done in 5 minutes, I would have thought. It's not a complicated form. It's just obvious that Liz was on benefit, so consequently she was entitled to a fee exemption.
Let me ask you this question. So, where are all the ambulance chasing, no win, no fee solicitors? If I tripped in the street I'd be a dozen knocking on my door going, let's sue the council. If somebody drove in the back of me, I'd be getting texts or God knows who from going, have you been in an accident? We're going to sue them. No win, no. Where have all those ambulance chasing, no win, no fee solicitors in this? You've opened the door for them. I'm sure if they phoned you up, you'd actually offer them advice. Where are these solicitors who let's forget that it's the right thing to do. Let's look at it purely for business. Where are they going? We can make some money out of this.
Yes. Well, that's you're on the same page as I was. I thought once we'd done it and shown that it's not only can be done, but can be done um, quite from a legal point of view quite easily and successfully, that people would do it. I think we encountered first of all the difficulty of getting the message out to enough people through the media not really wanting to report uh, what was going on, because of course it wasn't until Elon Musk weighed in and publicized on X or Twitter what was going on with the child rape gangs that the officialdom was really prepared to admit that it was a huge problem, which they had been complicit in trying to cover up. But I don't know, because I live in Essex. I don't live up near Rotherham where Liz lives, but I understand from some of the girls who did come forward after there was a little bit of publicity that they had been told by local solicitors that you couldn't sue perpetrators. Well, I find that staggering.
If their solicitors' firms are based in these areas, they may be making a judgment, as in, this case is great, I can win this case, but I'll never get any future work from the Muslim community where I'm based. And maybe many of these solicitors are Muslims, Pakistani heritage themselves. There could be many reasons. There could be many reasons.
I think you're right, Nick. It is those kind of reasons. So it's self-interested, or as you say, that they are Pakistani Muslims themselves. But the girls didn't seem to be saying to me that they were told to go somewhere else, but rather that you simply couldn't sue, which was simply untrue. Not only as I've demonstrated, but this isn't a new principle in English law. People have been suing people who committed crimes against them or against members of their family for many centuries in England. And the law fully, in principle, fully sort of backs you up that you can not only sue for compensation, but you're not restricted by the normal rules of the limitation period, which normally when you're suing somebody for a crime, you're supposed to sue them within 6 years. Where the person's been convicted, they are not allowed to argue that they didn't do it. So there is no unfairness in them being sued 20 years later. And the courts over the years have been very clear that that's the case. So there's nothing that really holds people back, but apart from perhaps knowledge, we need to find a way to get people to understand what could be done. And you're right also that it's not just about justice for the victim, but it's also a deterrent, I think, for the perpetrators. If it looked pretty clear that if you did this kind of thing, you'd wind up getting sued and you'd lose everything that you'd got from doing it, I think there'd be a lot less keenness to do it, and that the perpetrators would not be seen as being important people in their communities. They would be the embarrassment rather than the important people, wouldn't they?
They would be if it was a white English community, but I've given this a lot of thought over many years. This is the reason why the Pakistani community don't ostracize these individuals, it's because they come from the same clan and they're brought up to understand it's the clan against the world. It doesn't matter if someone in my clan does the most horrendous thing ever. It doesn't matter because they're my clan and my clan sticks together and it's us against the world. That's their mentality. And we see this across the third world. It's the reason why these countries are the third world. It's that clan mentality. My last question for you is this, Robin. What's next for you? Are you going to do another one of these cases? We can't expect you to sue everybody. It's just you're only one man. You've led the way. Other people need to grab the baton as well and run with this. But once this case is complete, will you be looking at doing another one?
Yeah, potentially, yes. I what I've been I have been working with people that have shown an interest in this to try and create a system whereby we could put together what's needed, which is obviously a victim who wants to sue, who has got a conviction against perpetrator, who's then got an asset. We then need to provide the backup support, both emotionally and legally, and also financially, to bring the case. And I think if we could once get that going, it would be not only self-financing, but it would make a useful and big difference to the horrific situation that we've had, it's just been allowed to fester and get worse and worse by officials who were colluding, and I the collusion is much deeper and wider than people imagine. The reason why, if any of your listeners haven't heard about these gangs, it's because of collusion. And that collusion is not just officials, politicians, police, teachers, but it's also journalists. And the journalists who knew about this but failed to report on it.
Yeah, it's also top politicians.
It is.
Yeah, and there's MPs sat in Parliament now who I think some of them need to go to jail.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Now, one of the things that I am currently working on is a judicial review to try and force the government to do a statutory inquiry into the child rape gangs. And we launched. We were able to bring a judicial review because Jess Phillips and Yvette Cooper refused the request that they were receiving to launch an inquiry. And you can only bring judicial review where a minister has made a decision, and obviously the refusal is a decision. So at that point, we were able to bring in a judicial review. We issued that. I've noticed that the timing suggests that Labour then instructed Baroness Casey to do her report, and she and the thing that's particularly interested me was that the government announced that they were going to do this statutory inquiry the day before they had to put in a defence in our case. The case is still there, and I think as time's dragging on and the Labour government's not actually getting on with organising the inquiry, we're going to get to a point where there's a good chance that the court's going to order them to do it.
I would imagine they're waiting and waiting and waiting, thinking we might not even be in government in the next year. So we need to avoid this inquiry completely because it's going to do us no favors. We might not even be in power 12 months from now. I think they're going to kick it down the road as long as they possibly can.
I think you might be right, but that's why we've got a court case to try and force them. And obviously, once the minister's ordered to do it, they don't do it. It'll be contempt of court. So we would be able to force them to do it, and we could also you might think, well, one of the things they might do is try to organise the terms of reference in such a way that it didn't touch them. Well, again, that could be judicially reviewed. So we're keeping a watching eye on them. At the moment, as I say, we've got this judicial review, and they haven't got a proper answer to it. And particularly having said that they would do it, I can't see what the proper answer would be that would argue that it shouldn't be ordered.
Let me end on this. Robin, you've seemed to have turned into a super solicitor. You've turned into like a superman. The legal profession, especially solicitors, have got a really poor reputation across the country. We only ever see them as a problem makers. But you've turned it around. Not only have you helped one of the victims of the grooming gangs personally, and you've got a house that hopefully is going to be sold and they're getting the money, you're now chasing the government to make sure they do the review. If you rip open your shirt, have you got a big S on your undergarments? Because you're turning into a super solicitor. And it sounds quite funny, but I sort of mean it as I'm saying it. I just want to say a big thank you. If we had more people like you, and they all don't have to be solicitors, they all don't have to be you, but if more people were like you and did their bit and did the bit they could do, not everyone can take people to court. I get that, but everyone can do something. If we're looking at child rape, the answer is there was nothing I could do. Damn right, there was something you could do. You should have shouted about it. You should have been on the internet. There's lots of things anyone can do, but you did what you know you can do. So for that, I just want to say a big thank you, Robin. That's a hell of a story, and
Thank you, Nick. Thank you.
you're welcome. Thanks for coming back on. And if there's any more developments on anything we've talked about, drop me a line and we'll do an update, because these are really important cases. You're finally showing people that the law can be used for good. We can use these tools to hold our tyrants, our abusers, our rapists. We can hold them account through the law, which has been developed over hundreds of years by people cleverer than me and you. It's there to support us and to create a great country with safe citizens. And some people may abuse it, but we can use it to make a better country.
Can. And we should, Nick.
And we should. Cheers, Robin, and I'll see you again soon.
Thank you.